I'll do my very best. It's nice to be home. It's been, as I'm sure all of you have seen, absolutely crazy in Washington, D.C. And I know that you probably were watching TV or reading the news and thinking, oh my God, what is going on? Can't they get their act together? Believe me, there are many of us who felt the same way. So we are on what's called our district work period for the month of August, having somehow managed to get through the whole issue of raising the debt ceiling so that we could actually pay the bills that were incurred last year. And we are now trying to figure out how we make additional cuts to the federal government. And I am certain that many people have opinions about whether or not, given how messy this last go-round was, many people are wondering how in the world can 6 members of the House of Representatives and 6 senators, both from, equally divided among the parties, do anything in a very collapsed time period to make a difference in what's going on in the economy. So let me tell you that some people are very skeptical and some people are very hopeful. I think the fact that, well, let me back up. There are a couple of things that I want you all to know. Number one, in spite of the fact that the debt ceiling has been raised in this country, oh golly, 75 times in the last many years, we have never had an equal amount of cuts to spending to equal how much the debt ceiling was raised or in excess of those cuts. So this is a historic thing. Never in my lifetime has this ever happened. So we have a lot of people to thank for actually pushing so that the federal government would begin to shrink, because obviously it is too much. And part of the trade-off for having allowed the raising of the debt ceiling this time around was really to set up a committee to determine where we're going to find an extra $1.2 to $1.7 trillion worth of cuts. And I actually am hopeful that this is what my colleagues do. Number one, there needs to be massive tax reform in this country, both on the personal level and on the corporate level. We have to collapse our tax brackets, on both levels, and particularly the corporate tax level. I think y'all, and as business people, I think it would be very helpful to you as well. We have so many different tax breaks in this tax code. There are tax breaks for 3 companies that put them at a huge advantage over other companies, and you see other multinational firms like General Electric, who paid about 2% in federal income taxes last year, versus Emerson in St. Louis, which is a multinational corporation employing tens of thousands of people, pay an effective corporate tax rate of 40%. And so there is not a level playing field. We are seeing jobs leave this country because we cannot compete with all of the other countries with whom we do compete in trade and exports and the like. So I am hopeful that what this committee will do is take a huge look at tax reform, lower our corporate tax rate from the second highest in the world next to Japan, from about 35% down to about 25%, and get rid of all tax loopholes. Close loopholes so that everybody's on the same playing field. So you don't favor General Electric over an Emerson, so you don't favor other companies, and all of the nastiness that people heard about corporate jets and gas on oil subsidies and the like, all of those would go away. And in most instances, most of those companies say, you give me a lower corporate tax rate, I'll not only keep my money in the United States instead of trying to send it overseas where I pay a lower corporate tax rate. And hopefully that will help loosen up cash. So that's one of the things I think this committee needs to deal with. On the personal level, if we collapse our tax rates down in this country and start taking away some of the deductions, not all of them, not the home mortgage deduction, which I know the real estate industry is very worried about, but the home housing market probably couldn't handle that right now. Keep the charitable contributions, perhaps. All of those things, this is what this committee has the opportunity to do. And whether, some people might say and be skeptical, how can they get this done in 2 months? Well, there are a couple of blueprints out there, and they can grab from those. And I think that would be the best thing that we could possibly do to help our economy grow even more, because it's obviously very stagnant. We also have to deal with spending. We also have to address entitlements as well. Unfortunately, we do, because in order to preserve benefits for our kids and grandkids, we cannot allow the Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security spending, and particularly Medicare and Medicaid spending, to exist as it does today, because it's gobbled up about 66.5% of our spending. And when it started, it was about 15%, and there are a lot more of us older people than there are younger people paying into the system. And so there are ways to do that that don't impact current beneficiaries or even those getting ready to retire. And I hope that that committee will also address those. Those are very, very important for us to move forward with economic growth in this country. People were very worried to find out this morning what the jobless rate's been, because obviously we've seen the stock market tank in the last several days. But apparently we did create 117,000 new jobs, and so the jobless unemployment rates dropped down to 9.1%, which is still unacceptable. And obviously here in Cape County, we well exceed the national average as well as the state average, but we have to keep doing everything we possibly can. And to focus on job creation and innovation, and put into effect policies that are, number one, good for business and business growth. I mean, on the small business level as well as on the larger business level, because we need to get people back to work. We have to address regulatory policy, particularly agencies like the Environmental Protection Agency, who now want us to regulate dust on farms, and I'm not quite sure. Maybe you all can have the scientists there at the university figure out how we get rid of dust on farms. That would be a very good. That would be a very good project, because Exactly. So, needless to say, regulatory reform, tax reform, and we need to bring some certainty to this economy, because obviously I know it's hard to take a risk and scary to take risks when you have no clue what policy is going to impact your bottom line. So I've been in a bad mood since May, when they blew up the levee, and it's just been downhill ever since. But hopefully y'all can put me. I'll be in a good mood by the time I have to go back to that crazy loony bin up there in Washington. Any questions, y'all? Anybody have any questions? I tried to collapse my talk because they said 5 minutes. No questions? Well, I'm going to take no questions, as you just love everything that's going on. Just keep it up. Seriously, you all, it's a real privilege. Well, it's normally a real privilege to serve in the United States Congress, and I do want to apologize for, or I wish, let's put it this way, that the national news media and the pundits and the like would just leave everything alone and let us do our job, because they exacerbate what is a tough situation anyway. We're dealing with, you've got two extremes, and then you've got the biggest majority of members of Congress, all of whom get along, who work together. You never hear about those people, because that doesn't sell advertising, and it doesn't sell copy. And so consequently, it's not as bad as it is, really, but certainly, unless you have me tell you that, there's no way you would know it by what you see. So anyway, thanks a lot, and please know really that I actually am optimistic about the future. We'll see what happens after the elections, but there's no excuse that we wait to try to do our very best to make the environment in this country good for jobs and good for economic growth. And you can count on me to continue working toward that. And please also know that you should probably, everything that you read or see on TV, if you just eliminate 50% of the spin on it, that's probably what's really going on instead of what you're hearing. So anyway, thank you very, very much for having me here.